What's going on, everybody? This is Brian Mazik, aka Franchise Play, and it's time for the NBA 2K18 video review. As usual, I wrote this up for Forbes. If you'd like to read it instead of watching it, you can click the link in the description. And just like I did with the NBA Live 18 review, I don't know, I was feeling metaphoric or something. I don't know what it was, but I related the NBA Live 18 review to Derrick Rose. So I felt compelled or inspired to do the same thing with NBA 2K18's review. So bear with me as I set up this little analogy and I break down NBA 2K18. LeBron James has his share of haters. Critics, they nitpick at every one of his perceived shortcomings. They say he's not the best free throw shooter. Others cry sometimes he should take shots late in games as opposed to passing to open teammates. Or he shouldn't have even left Cleveland in the first place, and he surely shouldn't have done that whole decision thing. Now, many of those critics take James's unparalleled athleticism, conditioning, and his expansive skill set for granted. He's supposed to be great, and when he is, he gets very little applause. But when he fails, everyone is waiting to throw stones. In my opinion, the NBA 2K series is a lot like that. Every year, the game is packed with options, cutting-edge visuals when compared to other games in the genre, and gameplay that is either good or great. Its best years are like LeBron's 3 championship seasons. Its worst years are comparable to the years when James guided teams to the finals or the conference finals, only to fall a little short of the ultimate goal. In examining NBA 2K18 thoroughly over the past month or so, including extensive hands-on gameplay at home and on location, I can tell you that this is indeed a championship season. Now, just because it's a championship season doesn't mean it's without hurdles. It's not completely free of hiccups, but it's hard not to award this performance with a trophy. So here's the good and the bad and the bottom line. Let's start out with the positives. Back in the 1980s, the association used to use a slogan, the NBA action is fantastic. Well, if this game had a similar catchphrase, it would be NBA 2K18 action is fantastic. Now, I'm not caught up in the moment when I say that the gameplay this year is the best it's ever been in the series. I thought it was really good when myself and a group of journalists got an opportunity to play it during a preview session in July. But it's even better now than it was then. And this new movement system takes away the heavy use of elongated canned animations, but it doesn't sacrifice the natural flow that's always made NBA 2K so attractive on the screen. The shot make and miss dynamic is ideal, and the weight strength detection delivers another layer of realism. Last but not least, the AI on both offense and defense has CPU-controlled players acting and performing as authentically as they ever have in any 2K game. If you're playing on superstar level, expect to see great players using their full complement of dribble moves, pump fakes, and shot types. It feels like you're playing against a skilled human. Several times during the gameplay, I've said, "Are you serious? Did he really just do that move on me?" On defense, CPU players will put some respect on the name of a deadly outside shooter by rotating to contest long-range shots, but they'll also leave poor shooters open. Passing lane obstruction and paint protection have also been augmented. What's even more impressive is that the gameplay enhancements extend to all modes. I've never been a big My Park, I know it's been rebranded to Playground, or Blacktop or Pro-Am player. But as I evaluated the game, I find myself falling in love with the nuances of these modes that now adhere to a more sensible brand of hoops. Mike Baluba Wang, Zach Timmerman, Scott OG, Gallagher, Nino, the Czar, Samuels, and others on the gameplay and AI teams deserve major kudos for their work this year. They have found a beautiful mix of fun and simulation, and they shouldn't change a thing. Last year's game had gameplay that was almost as good when the game released, but the development team sent it through a number of patches and that left things in less than ideal shape. Unless someone uncovers some sort of egregious exploit, NBA 2K fans should be hoping that nothing has changed about the gameplay. Let's talk about the way it looks. The new body types are a major improvement from last year's extra healthy or malnourished models. Body proportions are on point, even though a few guys could potentially be a little more muscular, but that's such a small issue it's barely worth mentioning. The game creates some stellar screenshots. You look at Steph Curry doing his three-point sign and all of that, and it's a great looking game overall. Let's talk about the neighborhood. Some good and some bad, but we're going to go to the good first. The biggest addition to this year's game is the neighborhood. The My Career mode is now an open world MMO experience that kind of amalgamates Pro-Am, My Part, character customization, and some new elements that hadn't even been included before. If I'm being honest, the mode is a little bit overwhelming. It begins with scanning your face on My NBA 2K mobile app, which works a little bit better than it has in previous versions. And there's a story attached to the journey, but thankfully it's not as confining as the one that was in NBA 2K16. In fact, if you're not careful, you can forget about the narrative as you get preoccupied with neighborhood business. That's a common thing with open world games. If you played the Prelude, you know your character first makes a name for itself as a street baller at the Proving Grounds and then gets signed by an NBA team, the organization that you listed as your favorite when you started it out. You then are given a list of objectives to follow, but you have the option to go off on your own to explore at any time. There's a Pro-Am gym, the playground, 2K zone, a clothing store, a barbershop, a tattoo parlor, and a subway to help you navigate the neighborhood quickly. Now, don't try to absorb it all at once. Pick areas of the map to explore and take some time to experience each one of them at a time. As I took a step back to comprehend the ambitious and mostly successful mode, it was impossible not to be impressed with what 2K has accomplished with this feature. Let's talk about My GM, because it is now its own separate piece of greatness and is totally worth your time. The story and team building blend together like Nancy Wilson's voice with Cannonball Adderley's horn. Did I lose you? Did I lose you? Y'all need to look up Save Your Love for Me. It's some beautiful stuff. It blends like Guru's lyrics over DJ Premier's tracks. Did that jive better? You get the picture. The mode gets the My Career treatment, complete with your character receiving a backstory and some interesting interactions with players, management, and the media. This is not a cookie-cutter franchise mode. It's a full-fledged, single-player experience that is backed by the aforementioned gameplay. My League is my mode. Y'all know that. My League has been the best aspect of the NBA 2K franchise for years. It didn't take as drastic of a leap forward this year as it has in the past, but Draft and Stash, G League Incorporation, and other moderate to small enhancements are still helpful additions. In short, it's still the best franchise mode available anywhere. In fact, My GM's new direction has made My League even better as it more clearly defines its purpose as a completely customizable legacy league experience. I'm waiting on carryover saves. It's perfect for My League, but we're gonna go there another time. The all-time teams concept is executed nicely and mostly without flaw. As a person who has obviously created this kind of roster set for years, I appreciate 2K piggybacking off the concept and officially implementing it into the game. There's an all-time team for every franchise, and most of the rosters are filled with the right players. The additional classic teams are another great addition. Teams like the 2001-02 Sacramento Kings and 13-14 Oklahoma City Thunder are a blast to control. There are some issues with the incomplete rosters, guys missing, Carlos Boozer, Rasheed Wallace, whatever, but we'll talk about that later. My team finally has a draft mode and a salary cap mode. Group this with all of the new challenges, exciting card reveals, and smarter pack contents, and the mode is finally in a position to challenge the Mutts and Diamond Dynasties as one of the best card collecting concepts. Pack and Playoffs is the new draft mode, and it delivers a new spin on the concept pioneered by EA Sports Draft Champions. In Pack and Playoffs, you're drafting only 5 players as the games have no reserves or stamina. You have to try and put the most complete lineup on the floor to battle competitors online in something of a playoff structure. Winning 4 games advances you to the next round, losing 4 gets you eliminated. Supermax is the salary cap mode, and it is boosted by 2 features that make coach selection appropriately important. System proficiency is key in pushing your players to perform to their capabilities. If your system doesn't fit your roster, then your team will underperform. Also, coaches have perks based on their gym level. You can use these perks during timeouts to give your team a boost. That's the perfect way to make top-notch head coach cards valuable. These servers, they started off pretty good. Okay, so I kind of had to go back and reassess what I said about this. But initially, we all know 2K servers generally struggle early on, and they have to kind of get caught up with the traffic. At first, we were okay. We had some situations where people had lost their My Career, all of their My Career saves on both Xbox and PlayStation 4. So that obviously sucked. I believe it was also happening on the Switch as well. So that was bad. That was just a little bad. Then it got worse because it got so bad we couldn't even call it a strength anymore. The My Player and My Career progress was a major error that proved that 2K is still more ambitious than it is capable in certain areas of their product. I mean, you look at stuff like the neighborhood and it's wow and it's awesome, but you gotta be able to do what you promise. And that's something that 2K generally struggles with. So that was at one point a positive, but we kind of had to flip it to the negative. So I guess it's a good segue into going into the bad. This is the bad section of NBA 2K18. I have to borrow Charles Barkley's pronunciation to describe the creative player system. It's terrible. It's terrible. It's pretty bad. 2K elected to go with scanned faces as a template, and that has apparently limited the customization options. While there are a number of new hairstyles to choose from and even some new body types, even more has been subtracted. Facial sculpting is gone. You can no longer change the eye color of your creative players, and you are chained to the skin tone of the preset head you choose when you start the creation process. The facial hair is perhaps the worst of all. Some of the mustaches actually look as if they were scribbled on by a 5-year-old. Also, there's no way to add tattoos to offline caps. These issues impact a variety of modes. It obviously has some impact on My Career, though not as much if you use face scanning, but it really hurts my league most of all. Gamers like myself have long created players and rosters that have added to the longevity of each 2K release. These limited creation options not only remove tools from the community, they also discourage anyone from using the creation suite altogether. Fans use this option to bridge the gap created when 2K and some players are unable to reach agreements for licenses or to simply put themselves and friends in the game. These rosters or the rosters that we create can be uploaded into my league, but now the results simply aren't as good. I believe 2K made this decision in an effort to make the caps look more in line with the other scanned players in the game. However, having control over every feature of a player's face still beats a scanned head that looks like a real person, but nothing like the guy that you're actually trying to create. Let's talk about some of the things in My Career. I made a character that's 7'2". So why is he like 5'11" in the cutscenes of the neighborhood? This is an unfortunate presentational misstep in My Career that is really hard to ignore. In Play Now games, the presentation is fine, but in modes like My GM, My League, and My Team, there is some room for improvement. In My GM and My League, the pregame interviews, pregame show, halftime show, and postgame wrap-up should be more specific to your current season and the events that have taken place. Madden 18 does a great job immersing you in their franchise mode games. It feels different than a regular exhibition game, and NBA 2K could stand to incorporate a little more of that. I obviously love the idea of having classic and all-time teams, but without stars like Barkley, Miller, Carlos Boozer, Gilbert Arenas, Moses Malone, Rasheed Wallace, the impact is slightly dulled. This was less consequential with the previous creative player system, but as it is in NBA 2K18, these absences are now felt even more. I don't like to penalize for a lack of licenses, but if we knock Pro Evolution Soccer for not having the licenses, we can't spare NBA 2K. The classic teams from other eras don't have uniforms that match the time that they played. For example, teams like the 1980s Detroit Pistons or Los Angeles Lakers teams still wear longer shorts. It's a small detail, but again, it adds to the authenticity and the immersion. Those teams should have the shorter shorts because that's the type of uniform that the players wore during those times. Let's do the bottom line. Just when it appeared as though NBA Live had closed the gap, the sheer immenseness and refined quality of the 2K experience shows us that there are levels to this game. The development team and visionaries in charge of the creative direction of the franchise have created a new layer where they alone rest in the sports video game universe. Just like LeBron James, NBA 2K18 isn't perfect, but with its ambitious new additions, refined gameplay, and a truckload of options, there's no question it's still the best in the world. There's a lot of questions and a lot of things going on around about how dependent NBA 2K18 is on VC and how much does it push the consumer to actually use real money to upgrade their character. There's no question there is more of a push, but I contend that it's still a choice that the player can make. They can either devote the time to grind and build their character, or they can choose to pay the money to upgrade their player. It's still a choice, even though it is going more of a way of an MMO and that sort of a game, which may not be all that attractive to some sports gaming fans, but I acknowledge that the gaming industry and the sports gaming industry is changing, and 2K is changing along with it, and in a lot of ways they're leading the charge for the good and for what some might say is the bad. My score for NBA 2K18 is a 9.1 out of 10. This is again a classic from the moment you rip off the plastic. I appreciate you watching. God bless and peace.